I noticed your pocket holster out here, and I immediately thought it was the reach through and could be the any other weapon holster.
This is not an any other weapon. This is one of those internet gun moments that's more difficult because a C-Camp pistol does not have a way to lock it open, but this is an empty magazine and an empty pistol. I got this when I toured the C-Camp factory years back. And I have a lot of pocket pistols dating back to what used to be backup guns, dating back to you're going to a party and it's 80-some degrees outside and you don't necessarily want to wear as much as you would normally wear. I love the idea of pocket guns because, again, it fulfills that first rule, which is...
Yeah, you want to have your gun.
Have a gun with you.
Yep.
Even if it's one that you don't use all that often and you apparently have trouble fumbling with sometimes. The number of people who have, and I bring that up for a specific reason, the number of people who we've heard stories from where they say, I heard the man yelling about something and he was beating against the door and I had a gun that I'd bought, 10 years ago, and I realized, oh man, I've never even shot that gun before, and I'm fumbling to get it loaded, and I can't quite get it set, but then I finally get it set up, and by that point, he was at my bedroom door, and I fired. Rule number one is still have a gun.
Yeah.
Now, we, being in the training business, hear stories like that and are like, dang it.
Yeah.
Like so many people want to tell so many people, oh, if you don't have any training, that gun's worse than useless. Well, not if you ask that person who had literally never fired this gun before, but used it to save their life. But pocket pistols are so neat to me because I love both ends of the spectrum. I love my tiny little featherweight, so small they're very difficult to shoot, and so light they're unpleasant to shoot. P380s. I'm a big fan of the first-gen Ruger LCPs.
Yep.
And then I love these beautiful stainless ones too, like this little C-Camp. This one's in 380, and just because when I was going through which I wanted to end up with, I realized I already stocked 380 ammo.
Yeah,
so I might as well go with the 380 again. And no, this is not one of those AOW holsters. I believe, I'm no attorney, but I believe the rule is as long as the trigger is covered up and you cannot run the pistol while it's still in.
You cannot fire the pistol from inside its container.
This wallet holster is what this one is.
And that's a back pocket? This
is
how
a
you're
back pocket
that?
holster.
Yep.
We use this for photos here in the studio. When I carry, I carry either one of my front pockets. I don't do back pocket carry. I don't like the idea of a pistol being behind me. I don't like smaller back carry. I don't like backpack carry if the backpack's all the way back here.
Yeah.
In Spain, I saw a kid from, 50, 60 yards away at some plaza where we were. I saw a little kid pickpocket just open up a guy's backpack really gently and start taking stuff out. Don't carry your gun in your don't do that. Keep your gun. That's why a lot of people love AIWB carry is it's right here. I know what's going on in my lap at all times. So I don't carry in the back pocket, but some people do. And it's better that they do than they don't carry a gun at all. So
and while we're talking about, favorite little pocket guns, this is a North American Arms Guardian, and again, nut doesn't lock open, so we'll make sure that it's all safe. Everybody, magazine is out, magazine is empty. Visually and physically inspect the interior of the chamber there.
I feel very safe right now.
This is empty as well.
Internet can relax.
And I have a Kel-Tec gun that I used as a backup gun for a while I was on duty. One of the reasons I like this Guardian, probably the reason you like that C-Camp, is it's an all-metal gun that makes it a little bit heavier for a tiny gun.
Yes.
Absorbs a little bit of the recoil, and it's not terribly uncomfortable to shoot. I still believe that, the full-sized or larger gun is always going to be easier to shoot, but there are times when you want a gun that's going to go in your pocket. So I utilize either a sticky holster or that, I wish I could remember the name now, but Elite Survival Systems makes a holster that also drops in your pocket, and when you grab the gun, the holster stays in your pocket when it comes out.
And I did something about these styles of holsters in the magazine a while back. A lot of people, myself included, and this dates back to when I was a teacher, didn't have hardly any money, and Mr. Combs clothes, as I call them, the clothes that I wore while I was at school, are expensive. So you get back from work, you immediately change into sweatpants left over from high school or whatever. When people talk about, your walking around gun, your house gun, like for when you're answering the door. Like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You should have a gun for when you're answering the door. Well, most people, you shouldn't answer the door like, hello? Like this. Okay, well, so what you can do is stand with it behind your hip. Okay, well then what if you open the door and it's an emergency and it's one of your neighbors who needs help? You need to have your gun holstered when you get to the door.
Right.
And you need to have a place where you can safely put it away once you're done using it. These pocket guns are great for door answering. However, when you said it's a great little holster because you put it in your pocket and then when you pull the gun out, the holster stays in. I assessed half a dozen different pocket holsters like that in my current not to be worn in public sweatpants, the ones that I throw on when I get home. And
Don't want to hear about them.
half of them worked and half of them didn't.
Okay.
Right? The inside of the pocket you're going to use a pocket holster in
It's very important.
Clutch. Well,
Yeah.
it's the difference between working and not working. Because otherwise, now you're standing here like this and you have the holster still on the gun. Now you have to do one of the most dangerous things you could ever be forced to do during a crisis, which is reach up toward what you know to be a loaded gun you're holding and try to pluck off a holster without shooting your offhand.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is another reason that we harp on, as soon as you get your hand on a firearm and you're about to use it, your finger is not even on the, don't even let it snoop down like when a dog's kind of sticking its nose. No. Slide of the revolver or frame of the pistol, slide of the pistol or frame of the revolver every time. Because if you do have to reach up to grab that holster that Waka Waka decided to stay on the gun, you have to be certain that you're not going to blow your offhand off.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings us around to another discussion about firearm safety. Before we wrap up with this, I want people to know that, pocket carry is an option. It's out there. Like every other self-defense option, practice, train, understand the limitations of what you got and what you're going to do with it. And in my case, people always ask me, if I'm using a sticky holster or one of those from Elite, well, what are you going to do if you got to reholster? And if my gun is out, I want people to reholster reluctantly. I'm not in a hurry to reholster.
Right.
From my front side hip pocket where I carry, if I carry in pocket carry, or my jacket pocket, I can transition to my offhand, pull that holster out and reholster that gun if I need to. I'm thinking if it's an actual incident where I'm really in trouble, I've fired my gun and the police are coming, I'm going to keep my gun out and ready until the police get there. Then I'm going to put it on the ground. There's not going to be much of a need for me to reholster.
Yeah, we did a whole video a while back on a man who was shot with his own gun by a cop who probably didn't even know how to safely handle her own sidearm.
Right.
One of the reasons that we teach, you can have your gun holstered when the cops show up, but it's probably going to be better to just put it down.
Put it down.
Is to avoid that. Hey, Sanders, go get his gun.
Yeah.
Like, well, she or he, maybe you don't like going shooting with that cop because they're so bad at this. Maybe something could happen. Yeah. Eliminate that. Of all the things you have to worry about right now, set that gun down on the ground.
Yeah. And
do not have the cops come and, like Mr. Bean goes to the academy, try to pluck a loaded gun out of your pants. That's we all saw what can happen when that goes down.
And I've said it countless times before that firearms accidents, negligent discharges, negligence happens during administrative handling, during something like that. And this poor guy that we're talking about, he was on a traffic stop. He didn't have a chance to take his gun out and put it on the ground.
Right.
He had it. He did everything right. Yep, I got my gun. Get out of the car. We're going to take the gun away. The cops have the right to do that. That's how things go wrong in situations like that. But while we're here, while we're on the topic, safety. It popped up in the office today. People are talking about what happens. Well, that gun is pointing at someone or that gun is pointing at a body part. So we want to make sure we're not doing that sort of stuff. You're absolutely right. The 4 cardinal firearms rules are of incredible importance, but you're not going to have negligent discharge with injury unless you break more than one of those firearm safety rules.
The most frustrating part about hypocrisy is pointing it out has a 0% success rate of getting people to change their behavior.
Right.
The more time you spend around people, if you spend enough time around the same people, you end up hearing things that they say that contradict each other. Things like, Grandpa, is that gun loaded? Like, is it dangerous? Well, it wouldn't be much good if it wasn't dangerous, would it? Okay. Well, that's the same grandpa, though, that yelled about, like, oh, look at this picture of this person drawn from his shoulder holster. He's pointing the gun right at his arm. Like, okay.
Yeah.
I understand that a lot of instructors say, bring this elbow up level with
That
your
arm
ear
out of the way.
and draw from your shoulder holster or whatever. But most people don't do that.
And again, I will say that is the best way. And I accept your premise that most people don't do that. And even if they don't, even if it is not perfect, it is still a safe way to do a dangerous thing.
And this is the bottom line, is a safe way to do a dangerous thing. There's so many people who've never had to do anything dangerous in their life, whether it was for work or whether it was to help somebody out or whatever. They've never had to do a dangerous thing in the safest way possible, that they really enjoy. Their little fists just ball up so tight when they think they can finally add something to the conversation, that they're going to yell about that, to which I would say, listen, we're already asking an awful lot of people who are going to take on the responsibility of carrying a gun. And if you want to, if that guy drawing from a shoulder holster blows a big hole in his brachial artery, he's not necessarily finished, but he's well on the way to being finished.
Pretty close.
A lot of the people who like to giggle and poke each other in the ribs about stuff like that carry Appendix.
Right.
Now, I have defended Appendix carry ever since I first became aware of it, because look, it's not like humans haven't been sticking firearms in their waistbands for a long time, dating back to the days when handguns were this long and they had a big long clip on the front so you could stick it down in a sash. The main beef a lot of people have with Appendix carry is you're going to shoot your femoral artery. You're going to shoot something else that's down there. Okay, yeah. Well, I didn't think we had to put don't shoot yourself with this in the user manual. If every time you access your pistol, your finger goes right there on the slide or right there on the frame of the revolver, that isn't nearly as much of a concern as if you're drawing like this. Now, we all know that the number one cause of negligent discharges is fingers going onto triggers when they shouldn't. And we all know that probably the second most common of actual, that was an accident discharges are those little plastic toggles on jackets and...
Oh, yeah.
Right, especially with a Glock trigger like this. So before you come at me, bro, about somebody drawing this from a shoulder holster and temporarily maybe pointing it at their arm, look down and see if maybe you're carrying Appendix.
Right.
Because there's a good chance you might be. And I know how much fun it is to tell people they're wrong. Yeah. I also enjoy that at times as well. But we're trying to do a dangerous thing. There is no safe way to do this.
Yeah.
We're trying to do a dangerous thing in the safest way we can.
In the safest way possible. It's not going to be completely safe, and understand that. And people will complain as I say this, and people always do when I talk about the idea.
They get high on it.
Yeah. When I talk about the idea that, we have the 4 cardinal safety rules, always treat every gun as if it's loaded. And I will say, well, what are you going to do then when you're cleaning your gun? It's not loaded. It's far more important to know the status of your firearm than to simply treat it as if it's loaded. Because when you have to do something with an unloaded gun, then you have to make sure that it's unloaded. Then I may treat it as if it's unloaded.
Right.
And never point your gun at anything you don't want to destroy. Well, you don't want to point your gun at your own arm, but getting that gun into action, well, don't put your finger on the trigger unless you've made a conscious decision to shoot. That's a good one.
And
I love that one.
These are, I've long referred to them as radical fundamentalist safetyists. These are the people that would be doing the Salvation Army style tambourine singing and all that back in the Temperance days. It is their goal to shriek through a bullhorn at you that they are the world's safest gun handler.
Right.
Never point your gun at anything you don't intend to destroy. I don't want to destroy light switches and microwaves and other stuff that I look at when I'm dry fire training. This is the same magazine that tells people to dry fire train as much as they can.
Yeah.
Well, that is not treating a gun as if it's loaded, because you would never fire a loaded gun in your house. You wouldn't do that in your house. I
wouldn't shoot at my light switch.
And that is, exactly. And that is pointing your gun at something you are not willing to destroy. And I understand why we start with the super basic rules. I've recently been helping some people teach some smaller kids how to shoot. At the beginning, like, yeah, just never ever point this at anything that you don't want to shoot.
Yep.
That's a really important rule, but
Yeah.
it's one of those asterisk rules that by the time the kid's old enough to start dry fire training and stuff like, okay, I told you that because you were 10. And it was of the utmost importance that this never gets pointed at anything that you don't want to shoot. So in an abundance of caution, I said, never point this at anything that you don't want to shoot. Right now, we're practicing your double action revolver trigger press. So we're going to be doing some dry fire training. And this is part of growing up. You start to learn that the simplest explanations you got when you were 9 aren't the same ones that work when you're 60.
Get a little bit more complicated.
Right.
And in a defensive scenario, in a defensive incident, you may be pointing your gun at someone you don't immediately intend to shoot. You pulled your gun out and hollered, "Stop, get back," and you're pointing your gun at that person. You still have not decided to shoot that person. They may surrender immediately or turn around and run away or do something other than continue their attack. You're pointing your gun at that person. You've violated a safety rule. But your finger is not on the trigger. Your gun is not going to go off. I argue that all the time too. Guns don't go off. Guns are made to fire. You have to do a very specific sequence of things to make your gun fire. And law enforcement officers hold people at gunpoint. They are pointing that gun at someone. They're trying to make sure that there's nothing in the background. They know what their target is and what's beyond it, but they're still pointing a gun at someone they don't intend to shoot yet.
Well, and maybe with this discussion, we need to look at where did the most famous set of firearm safety rules come from?
Right. Jeff Cooper.
At gunsight. So maybe we need to look at those as those are the rules that you announce at the beginning of a class. Don't take these home. Don't take these out on the street when carrying a gun. But when you're here, when you're on my range,
Yeah.
you're going to follow those rules.
Yeah.
And other rules are just going to have to be modified because otherwise you can't clean your gun, you can't dry fire your gun, you can't do practice draws with an empty gun, etc.
Yeah. And that discussion, and we're going to get comments and notes and letters to the editor, and people are going to be upset with us, and maybe people in our own company are going to be upset. So how dare could you say that? Well, because we have to be realistic about we are doing a very dangerous thing, and we are doing it the safest way possible. And truly, in order to have a negligent discharge with injury, you have to have broken more than one of the safety rules. If you only break one, it's bad. You broke a safety rule. That was wrong. You shouldn't have done it. But you didn't hurt anybody in doing it that way. Now, if you break two of them, that is, you point your gun at someone and you didn't intend to shoot them, and you put your finger on the trigger and pulled it, now and maybe you've broken another one. You didn't treat your gun as if it was loaded. You didn't know the status of your firearm. Was there a round in the chamber? It is a series of steps that get you to the point. That's why I don't like to use the word accident. I correct myself when I say accidental discharge. It is a negligent discharge. You didn't intend to do it, and you did it mistakenly, not accidentally, not, oh, whoopsie. Nope, you were negligent. There was a whole series of things you had to do to make that gun get really loud without you intending to do it. And it's just, it's one of those things that I could talk about this topic for hours and go on, and I might not convince anybody. You're absolutely right. So